This is the Haulin Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 62 of the Haulin Assets podcast. I am Craig, your host, and over there...
Still Chris, same guy.
Chris.
Can't get rid of me.
Believe me, I've tried. Today we are talking about September financials. We're running up on the end of October, so it's about that time. We better talk about last month's financials.
Yeah.
And we are going to do that. There are some interesting numbers to go over, but as I understand it, there are some interesting stories to go over first because, Chris, you brought visual aids.
I did. Yeah, I did bring
for
a
this
visual
for the
aid.
podcast. You brought visual aids, which I appreciate.
yeah, because it was something that you have never seen before. You weren't sure what it was.
I had no idea what I was looking at. All right, so it's a cylindrical object with kind of a platform base on the bottom, and then some kind of rubber outside. I had no idea what this was.
So it's actually upside down.
Oh, okay.
So you're looking at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
The platform base is actually the top.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's a suspension airbag.
A suspension airbag. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this is what
Part of the
semis
suspension
use
system
instead
on a
of
semi. Yep.
Okay.
So I brought it in because it just got replaced, and it was it just got replaced, even though it was just replaced like 2 months ago. I'm a little bit frustrated with mechanics right now.
This is how I can tell you're frustrated because you're having a hard time finding words.
I can't find words.
Usually, you're ready to talk about whatever subject, and now I want to talk about
angry
mechanics. Okay, so what happened?
So the original airbag developed a hole, which is normal. It happens, and got replaced. And I had it replaced out on the road by one of the big fuel travel centers that everybody knows and
and shall remain nameless.
And shall remain nameless for now. But they replaced it, and to make a long story short, they put the wrong airbag on. It's too tall, and it had to get replaced within 600 miles.
How much how much was the original repair?
It wasn't too terribly bad. I want to say about $450.
Ugh.
I mean, when you're saying $450 is not a bad repair, that's actually a pretty good repair. That's
I was gonna say, that ain't cheap.
It's cheap for a truck.
I suppose so. All right.
But so $450, and had to do it again. And what really even irks me more is this the second time this chain has done a repair that had to get fixed again within the last couple of months. And I hate getting the truck fixed on the road because you never know what kind of mechanic you're going to get. And I've struck out twice in the last several months from the same chain.
So is that you're out on the road, you don't have your mechanic, right? So you just, I'll go with the trusted national brand.
You'd think. Yeah.
You'd think. So
you'd think they'd want to uphold their reputation.
There's got to be some resources out there for drivers who can recommend somebody locally, right?
There are some, but it's sometimes just hard to find on the fly. If you're in a little bit more of a rural area, it's hard to find, and it's one of those things where it's tough to find a good mechanic.
I just found the next project for motorcarrierhq.com, Chris.
You know what? That would be a good thing to do, is to have like a good trusted source of mechanics, because you are, I mean,
in every major and minor metro area, here's who you go to. And sometimes maybe it would be the national chain if it's run by somebody there who you like. And
that's the thing, I'm sure there's some shops that they have that are just great. It's all about the mechanic you get. And, I get that as a business owner. Sometimes it's hard to find the right people for the right job. And you don't always hit it out of the park with every person that you hire, but you always try to find that right person for the job. And I think mechanics and shops probably have a tougher time with that than a lot of places do. So I do have some sympathy there, but it's frustrating.
Well, so I want everybody in the sound of my voice to go to haulinassetsllc.com or go to Facebook, find us there, and put a comment in one of those two places and tell Chris how amazing it would be to have that resource. We want to back him into a corner and let's start pulling that together.
That would be a very good future project. Absolutely.
All right. So you said there were a couple of things that happened. There were 2 repairs that went wrong?
Yeah, the other one was an air leak. There was an air leak in the trailer, and they fixed it and by putting a plug in it so that I wasn't getting any air into the tire inflation system on my trailer.
Which you need,
yeah. So instead of like actually fixing the repair, they basically just plugged it.
Made it worse.
Well, it fixed the leak. It stopped leaking. Then it wouldn't inflate the tires on the trailer.
Yeah, I'll stop leaking when I have prostate problems, and that's not good news.
No, that's not. I think if we're talking about prostates at this point, it's probably time to move on.
Okay, all right. So maybe some other numbers than our impending age, right? Okay, so should we talk about some September numbers, Chris?
Yeah, but before that, a little bit of a teaser at the end. I want to talk about. I'm thinking about adding a truck. After all this ranting about frustrations with mechanics, I'm going to go and maybe I need to rethink adding another truck. But I'm thinking about that. We'll talk a little bit about it at the end.
Okay, all right. We will get there. We're also going to talk about, I think, some listener reviews. And so if you've left reviews recently, we might be shouting you out. Anyway, okay, Chris, how was September?
Overall, September was average.
Hey, well, I'll take average.
I will take average. Yep, average is, I'm perfectly okay with an average month.
Now, we're in August, as I recall, rates were pretty darn good.
Yeah.
As you guys were out on the road. Was that the same in September as well?
It is, yeah. They've still stayed pretty good.
And so what brought you to average instead of having a good month with those rates?
I'll give you one guess.
Repairs. Oh, repairs and maintenance. Hey, there's that category. Rearing its ugly head.
My favorite one.
All right, so tell me about the month.
So to start off with, we ran 10,145 miles, which is
average.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, now you're usually shooting for what, 12?
10, anything over 10 is usually pretty good. Yeah, if we get into 12,000 miles in a month, it becomes a really solid month.
Okay, all right. So go on.
I would say 10, 11, right around there is average.
How much of those were deadhead?
Only 687. So that's
really good.
That's better than average. Yeah, a little over 6%. So anytime we're under 10, 5% is like the gold standard. So 6 is pretty close to that. 6 is definitely good. 687 miles was good for the month.
Absolutely. So what'd you guys pull down revenue wise?
Revenue wise was $20,720 and
one cent. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of funny because you make fun of me that every time you're like, oh, you always got to count that last cent. And I started thinking about that as I was preparing for this podcast episode. And I started to look back because I remember you making that comment last month.
And the month before.
This is people are probably going to start questioning why this is happening. It's not like I'm just going to land on 1 cent every month. But you know what it is?
What?
Typically, when you haul stuff, most of your contracts are even dollar amounts, right?
Sure.
Well, that 1 cent is because of a little over $1,000 that I have in my savings is that 1 cent of
accruing interest. The
0.01%
that you get in your
that's exactly
checking
what it
account.
is. It's I just here's a hint with QuickBooks. When I categorize that 1 cent of income every month that I get from interest, I just categorize it as freight hauled, which is what I categorize everything else, just because it's materially insignificant, really.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what I categorize it as. I don't want to create a separate interest earned line
but
when
it
it's
needs
1 cent, but it needs to be somewhere. So I just always put it as freight hauled, and so that's why the revenue it has very regularly ended in 1 cent.
That's very interesting. I am genuinely my eyes are opened, and I feel glad that I know this now.
There you go. And I think it's a good lesson for QuickBooks or whatever accounting system that you use. That sometimes you don't have a really great place to put whether it's an expense or an income category. When it's just a little amount like that or a little expense and it's really materially insignificant, you can kind of just put it anywhere. So that's kind of what I've done.
Fun fact: I worked as a banker for 4 years, and
that's fun.
Yeah, well, you have to disclose the rates on any accounts that you open, whether it's personal or business or whatever, right? You always have to disclose the rates. And it was frankly embarrassing to show somebody a rate sheet for checking or savings account. It's 0.01%. Yeah. Congratulations. You're gonna be making bank.
Yeah, that 1 cent isn't gonna go very far that I earn every month.
All right. So you made $20,700 and something and 1 cent. What does that bring you to rate per mile?
So the rate per mile was $2.04, which is really
That's
good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's absolutely good. Anytime we can keep over $2 a mile, we're doing pretty well. Even when you have a bad month on maintenance and repairs, you make up for it with a good rate like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic rate. So you did that with an average number of miles on the road. I assume that means an average number of days out on the road as well.
Yep. Basically 19 full days on the road and 5 partial days on the road. So 24 total days. That may be a little bit on the lower side, but pretty close.
Acceptable.
Okay.
Sure. And so what did that bring you to profit-wise?
So the drum roll big number at the end was $3,054.35.
Okay. All right. So, and that's, of course, after driver pay, after the repairs and maintenance.
Yep.
And so it would have been bigger had it not been for these annoying repairs.
Yeah, the annoying repairs just always like to screw things up. And I was even working on repairs a little bit this morning. If you notice, I've got a big smudge mark on my shirt.
More visual
aids
for the podcast.
I wasn't planning on spending as much time this morning working on the truck as I did. It's in town and just getting ready to go back out on the road. There were a few things that the airbag that needed to be replaced. We had the DPF filter cleaned for the first time since I've owned the truck, and a few other little nitpicky things done on it, and I got dirty.
So that's what you're doing now. But back in September, what sort of repairs and maintenance did you have to go through?
Replaced 4 trailer tires. Did a muffler repair. It's kind of funny. The rear differential, the one that drives most of the time, started getting pretty hot, and so automatically assume there must be something wrong with the differential. What's wrong with the differential? Well, we took it into a shop to get looked at, and the shop guys, like, they pulled the oil, they looked at everything, and said, it's full on oil, everything looks good, and then they started to look around. They're like, oh, the tip on your exhaust is missing, like it had fallen off or something. I don't know what it was, but anyway, instead of
somebody stole it, Chris.
Yeah, instead of diverting the exhaust down to the ground, it was blowing it right onto the differential, causing it to get hot.
You don't say.
Well, and it probably wasn't causing the differential to get hot. It was causing the sensor that's right on the outside of the differential to get hot.
Either way, it's gonna set off alarms.
It was setting alarms off.
Yeah. Okay. So plenty of repairs and maintenance brought down the profit that you got in September, but still a decent month.
Yeah, it was.
Save that money, Chris.
Save that money. It was about $2,500 total in maintenance. Well, $2,700 I think in maintenance and repairs for the month. So that's a little bit on the higher side. So if we wouldn't have had that, we'd have been in the 5,000s.
Wow.
For the month, which would be a really good month.
Well, yeah. I mean, those repairs and maintenance would have happened sometime, so at least it happened in an up month.
Yep.
So, all right, very good. So anything from the profit and loss statement or from the balance sheet that you want to pull out and talk about? Anything that we haven't hit yet?
Nothing that we haven't already hit.
Okay, so pretty standard. If you've been following along with the podcast, it's, probably going to be fairly familiar. If you haven't, if you're not familiar with what we do here, yes, we're talking about the balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, and you can get those documents at HaulinAssetsLLC.com. So HaulinAssetsLLC.com, and you can click on show notes. It's right there on the front page. It says, click here for show notes or whatever it says. And that'll show you every episode we've ever done with all of this documentation and all of that. So yeah. I would encourage you to check that out. And like I said, harass Chris in the comments. That's also always acceptable.
Yep.
Okay. So, Chris, you said you're thinking about buying a truck.
I'm thinking about adding another truck to the fleet. Yeah. So we get 2.
By fleet, we mean 2.
Yeah.
By fleet, we mean the one you have now.
Can I consider it a fleet if I've got 2 of them?
It's a small fleet.
We'll call it a micro fleet.
There you go. So, but this would be the first step to building that fleet, right?
It would be, yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. I'm 90% sure I'm there and I'm going to do it. I haven't 100% made the decision, but I'm close enough that I've gone out and started looking at trucks and trailers again.
What's the thing that would tip the scale for you? What's the thing that you're waiting for to know, okay, now's the right time?
For me, it's more time. Like if I just had the trucking company and that's all that I was focusing on, I probably would have added another truck already.
Oh, so you're saying your time, the time that you need to devote to this fleet.
This little micro fleet.
Yes.
Yeah, if you think about it, I got off the road, had been driving for a full year. There was a lot of things that I'd wanted to do in some of my other companies. So they kind of sucked up a lot of my time for quite a while and still are to a certain extent, but things have freed up just a little bit so that I think now's the time to add another truck. If you're going to do it, it's good to get it on so that it's running during the fourth quarter when rates are going to be the best. Get some money from that truck early on. So it's either now or probably wait till spring, and I'm pretty sure
you're going to do it
I'm
now.
going to do it now.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you are getting another truck, I assume that you're not chomping at the bit to get back into a truck. Are you going to hire somebody else to help out?
Going to hire another driver, yeah. So if anybody's looking for a job, especially if you're in the Salt Lake area or in Utah anywhere, I'd love to talk to you. But yeah, looking for another driver.
All right.
That's really one of the biggest obstacles to getting to adding another truck is just really finding that driver. It's, buying a truck is just money for the most part. Truck and trailer, just money. It's the driver that always is a little bit more difficult, finding that right person. Mike's been a good driver, and I hope I can find another good person like him that do a good job in the truck and make some money for all of us.
So all the Mikes out there in the Salt Lake area, reach out. Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has joined the podcast recently and has started listening recently, then you can go back to, I want to say, Chris, it was around episode 50, give or take a few episodes, that we talked a lot about building a fleet and moving forward, next steps with, kind
of my philosophy on how to do it. Yeah.
Growing your business.
There's definitely somewhere between 50, 55, somewhere right around there.
Anyway, so please go check those out. I don't think we're going to go into a ton of detail on what it means to grow the fleet because we've already done that. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the future.
But I think there's going to be some good episodes coming up, especially if you think about it, the lessons I've learned from buying the first truck and trailer to the second truck and trailer. And there's going to be some other things that I think will make for some good future episodes, not too distant future episodes if I do actually end up buying it, and hopefully help our listeners even more.
So just as a preview, I guess the question I would want to ask you right now is, are you going to go with another refrigerated truck, or are you going to go, or trailer, or are you going to go with flatbed, dry van?
That is a really good question. And I've talked to Jake a little bit about that to kind of get his opinion, because part of me wanted...
Jake the dispatcher?
Jake, my dispatcher, yeah.
Right.
Part of me wanted to get a dry van so I could do a comparison between a reefer and a dry van and run them for 6 months and be able to show people what the financial differences look like. Well, Jake says Utah is not the best place to run a dry van out of, because he says there's just some times of the year that the freight for vans in the Utah area just aren't great. So I think this one's probably going to be a reefer, but sometime in the near future, I think I'd like to get a driver that's based somewhere else where dry van is a little bit more lucrative.
Maybe somewhere north, Wisconsin or something. Where
actually, Jake was saying, some of that North Midwest, like Wisconsin's better. Texas is a pretty good place for dry vans. So yeah.
Okay. So, but for now, you're thinking refrigerated.
For now, I think it's probably going to be a reefer.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting. Maybe the third truck.
Yeah. I seriously, I think it would be great for our listeners or great for our audience to be able to do that at some point. So that is something I plan on doing, but it may be a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it would be great to have the illustration, but the business has to actually survive, right? So if it doesn't make sense right now to get the dry van, then you're not going to collapse the business just to prove a point or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, very good. So, Chris, anything else you want to talk about before we address some listener comments?
No, I think that's about it. Just speaking of the reviews, it's been awesome to see, especially in the last month or so. We've gotten a handful of really good reviews, and I appreciate that. I love listening to what people like about the podcast, what things they've learned from it and what are important to them so that we can continue to make good podcast episodes that focus in on some of those things. So, as always, leave us some reviews. Let us know what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and we'll always tweak and adapt and try to do a better job.
Yeah. Especially leave those things you don't like about it on a 5-star review. That's the real trick.
That's always helpful. Yeah.
No, it does help. It helps other people find the show when they're searching for stuff, whether on iTunes or whatever it's called now, or online. Google does pay attention to the reviews, even if you don't. I don't think Google Podcasts or whatever it's called has a way to leave them in the same way.
Yeah, and you can also, you can put them on Facebook too.
Yep.
We look at those reviews, those comments, or read through all of those. And
yeah, so it helps the algorithms so that people can find us, but it also helps, like you said, Chris, it helps us know what people enjoy and don't enjoy, and it helps stroke the old ego. We need those 5-star reviews.
Yeah, this isn't always easy, so it's good to hear when we've been helpful.
I was actually shocked, Chris. I went onto Apple Podcasts, and we've got 139 ratings.
That's awesome.
Which, I'm impressed with. This is the little podcast that could. What's it been, a year and a half? And that's, honestly, I'm very grateful to those who have left those reviews. Just in this month, we've, this might be my favorite one. This person, 12 Kicks. Hey there, 12 Kicks, says, I was a company driver the last 2 years, and when I started planning on becoming an owner-operator, of course, these ads started popping up on my YouTube videos. As if my phone was listening, and, I started listening to the show, and he says he enjoyed it. Clear info on how to start and keep up with your business. I learned more about running a trucking company from this podcast than all the Google searches I've done. The cost per mile is great. How can somebody start a trucking business without knowing their CPM? Am glad Apple, this is my favorite line, am glad Apple is spying on me and put their ad in front of me.
I love that. Yeah, that's funny. It's funny how they do that, but yeah, there's some good benefit to it.
Yeah, I hope so. This person says, this is the best trucking podcast around. This is Bald Eagle Daddy. Says, this is the best trucking podcast around. I've listened to every episode more than once and learned more each time. I have been in contact with Tyler and am almost ready to take the next step, guys. Thank you. No, awesome. Thank you, yeah. Bald Eagle Daddy. So what he's talking about is Chris, as we've referenced many times, runs many businesses. And the bulk of those are actually about helping people out on the road start and run their trucking companies, right? It's not just about this educational version of that.
Yeah.
And so people can reach out. Where can they find you to retain your services, Chris?
motorcarrierhq.com. So the name of the company is Motor Carrier HQ, and motorcarrierhq.com is a good place to look us up, find all our contact info. And yeah, the whole reason I did this podcast is because I've seen clients over the years struggle with the business principles when they start a trucking company, and wanted to be able to give people every possible opportunity to be successful. And the hope is too that as people decide to make that leap and becoming an owner operator, they learn a lot from this podcast. And ideally, we'd love to have them use our services when they're ready to do that. And we feel like we do a good job and provide them a good service for what they pay for, and do it honestly and ethically, and hopefully help people out and make big fans of everybody.
Yeah, and the good news is, as you know, I know nothing about trucking, and I don't work for motorcarrierhq.com. So you won't run into me there. It's a much more reputable service than that. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, we haven't hired Craig for a reason.
Yeah, well, that's
stick with what you're good at.
Exactly, that's right. You don't have no audio needs at Motor Carrier HQ?
Not very many.
The last one I was going to mention is from somebody who calls himself Owner Hopeful. And it says, owning a small fleet is my dream, and this podcast has been very helpful in planning and learning. So, yeah, I hope that's the case for those who want to grow into a fleet and those who just want to stick with the owner-operator route for the foreseeable future. Either way, I hope there's a lot of good content for people.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried to build the podcast that way, that it's good for whatever you want to do, whether it's be an owner-operator and kind of be in control of your own destiny, or grow into a bigger fleet. And we've seen clients do both and can help out anybody either way. And really this podcast, the principles for the most part are the same either way. You make some tweaks to it and a little bit different, but 90% of it's the same, whether you're going to be an owner operator or run a large fleet.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up and call it for the week?
I think that's it. We'll see everybody next episode.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.